Today, we're going to be taking a look at our behavior genetics, predicting our individual differences. We're going to take a look at what chromosomes, DNA, genes are, what a human genome is described as, how twin and adoptee studies help us understand nature, and what is meant by heritability, and discuss how it relates to individuals and as well groups. And also look at a new type of research, and that is molecular genetics, and changes how we understand the efforts of nature and nurture. So, what makes us who we are? You share your family biological heritage. What do you share with your family as far as our common behavioral tendencies? How does our kinship appear in our behavior? You ever heard the phrase, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? Are there commonalities among all humans? For example, we know that all humans fear strangers by 8 months. We prefer people who are similar to us. We affiliate, we conform, we return favors, we punish offenders. So, what causes our diversity, our shared human nature? How much is genetics? How much of it is an environment? So, how does heredity differ from our environment? Heredity is what we refer to as the nature part of the debate, how genetics transfer from parent to offspring. Our environment is everything non genetic, from prenatal nutrition to people and our environment around us. So, what do behavior genetics study? Relative power and limits to heredity and environment influence in our behavior. What is built in and what is in our surrounding environment. So let's start with the biological aspect of it by understanding what a chromosome is. A chromosome is that thread-like structure of DNA molecules that contain our genes. We have 46 chromosomes. We inherit 23 from both sets of parents. Our DNA is the molecular containment of genetic information that makes up our chromosomes. So, what is our code of life? Our code of life is what we refer to as our genes. Our genetic code exists, it is entirely every cell of our body. It influences our traits, groupings, influence of our IQ, happiness, aggressiveness. Our genetic predisposition is influenced by our traits. So, what is this idea of a human genome? This is basically the makeup of human organism, consisting of genetic material in the human chromosomes. It is discovered in common sequences within all human DNA. Genetically speaking, we are all close to being identical twins. So, speaking of that, let's take a look at twin development. Identical twins is where we have a single fertilized egg that splits into two, creating two genetically identical organisms. So, what can we learn from identical and what we'll talk about is fraternal twins? This is the nature nurture discussion. So, identical twins share placenta, but a third have separate placentas. So therefore, one twin may receive more nutrients, and that is what shapes the differences among identical twins. Are identical twins behaviorally more similar than fraternal twins? Yes. So a fraternal twin, separate fertilized eggs that share maternal prenatal environment, no more alike than siblings. So fraternal twins are less likely to be same sex and less likely to be similar in temperament. So what twin studies suggest is that, for example, Alzheimer's disease is influenced by heredity. So what do twins reared apart tell us about heredity and environment? We know that adoptee parents are more likely to influence things like, yes, political views than their adoptee children. So what is heritability? To estimate a trait's heritability, researchers are most likely to use the twin studies. Genetic influence explains about 50% differences between people. So heritability is the variation among individuals in a group that we can attribute just to the genes. So a heritability of a trait may vary depending on the range of populations and environments in the study. As environment becomes more and more similar, heritability becomes more important. Think about how around the world through technology, most of the world that is in industrialized countries are very similar. So what tells us about heritability is becoming more important. Our behavior has the most adaptive capability. Diversity of human traits are enabled by that. What that means is we're able to change our behavior rather than our genetics. Genes act as a blueprint that leads the same results no matter what. All right, so let's take a look at similar environments. How do similar environments impact heritability? Interaction. Interaction is the interplay that occurs when the effect of one factor depends upon another factor. Nature's effect on nurture, nurture's effect on nature. Environment triggers our gene activity. Our traits evoke certain responses. So, for example, you may ask yourself this question: how does a person's genetics influence their environment? Or how does genetics affect behavior? The goal is for some, is to marry genes that influence together, is what we call interaction. So, what kind of things can be revealed by the study of interaction? At-risk populations to diseases or genetically influenced disorders. So therefore, what we do is we take a look at what is known as molecular genetics and molecular behavior genetics. Molecular genetics is the study of molecular structures and functions of genes. Molecular behavior genetics is how the structure of those functions of the genes interact with the environment to influence our behavior. That will be the end of the discussion on Mod 14.